Hello, and thank you for listening in to this Tableau customer conference preview. My name is Curt Budd. I'm a sales consultant with Tableau, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this. Right? This is what we see every single day in the business world, these crazy spreadsheets that contain arcane levels of detailed information. They're not necessarily very intuitive. They don't display information in a graphical way that's useful and intuitive for the end user. What I'd like to do is talk to you today about how we can use Tableau to do some of the things you might be used to doing in Excel in order to make this more useful from an information consumption perspective. There's lots of things that we do in Excel to get close to reporting or analysis of the data. Tableau can carry you much further than Excel can, and my goal is to help you understand where the common ground exists between the two and understand how to do some of the things that you normally do in Excel, but instead to do them inside Tableau. And ultimately the goal is to move away from something like this, which is just crazy rows and columns, and end up with something like this that's a little bit more visually compelling, that helps you tell a story, that helps you see the forest through the trees. That's what we're after, to get you to start thinking about using Excel to store the data, but use Tableau to visualize the data and understand the stories that lurk within the data. So let's get you thinking about how to use Tableau as opposed to how to use Excel. Along the way, something that you need to keep in mind, right? Just simplicity. It's a tremendous virtue. I've seen countless numbers of spreadsheets that contain dozens of rows and hundreds of columns and lots of garish colors and two-point font that nobody can read without a magnifying glass. And the problem with those is that nobody can understand them, right? The author that produced them can probably understand them, but frequently no one else in the business can. But if we can start to think about the virtue of data visualization and the virtues that Tableau enables for us in terms of taking that complicated data and presenting it in simple, consumable bits, it suddenly makes the data storage in Excel have a lot of value, but you no longer need to worry about using Excel as the way to visualize the data, because you get so much more visual value and analytic value out of simple presentations of the data inside tools like Tableau. This is the agenda for the day. We're going to start off at the upper left-hand corner of the screen here, talking about how to get the data in the right shape so that we can do things with it in Tableau. We'll talk about some common formulas next, ways that you almost always want to be able to attack the data, parsing dates, manipulating strings, doing some sophisticated lookups and cell references in Excel, and seeing how much simpler they are when you do them in Tableau. We'll talk about data blending versus lookups. We'll talk about conditional formatting inside Tableau, and then we'll talk about how to share results with others. So these are things that we all do today inside Excel, right? Every single one of the things that I'm going to talk about is something that people do in Excel today. The goal is to help you understand how to take those everyday tasks and do them in Tableau so that you can more thoroughly embrace Tableau and what it's capable of. So let's go ahead and get started with the first thing, and that is just getting the data in the right shape to work with in Tableau. And I'll start with an example. Here's an example of a report, right? This is an Excel spreadsheet, but it's really a report. Somebody has produced this crosstab for me that has some dates running across columns D, E, F, and so on. We've got some countries and some notion of regions running down columns C and D. There's some blank columns and some blank rows on the top of this. Connecting to this inside Tableau is difficult, and so the first thing I want to do is just talk about the difference between a report and raw data, and how we take data or how we make data inside Excel so that we can consume it. The first weapon in this is a knowledge base article. Go out to our website and look for this knowledge base article about preparing Excel files for analysis. This is going to be your friend. This knowledge base article is going to talk to you specifically about how to take something that is a formatted report, which is what we're looking at right now, and turn it into some raw data that can be useful for analysis. So read this article. I encourage you to go find this thing later so that you can understand exactly how it is that your data should be shaped so that it's useful inside Tableau. So we'll do a couple of these things. Let's get rid of these extra columns right here. Okay, let's get rid of these 2 extra rows at the top. And so that's not quite what I wanted. Get rid of those 2 rows. So we're getting a little bit closer, right? I've got a bit of a crosstab now. It looks like raw data. Let's save this spreadsheet and go connect to this in Tableau and see what it looks like. Here I am inside Tableau. We're going to go get connected to that Excel spreadsheet, and it's can't remember the name of the tab. It's the budget crosstab sheet, the simplified sheet. And so here we go. Presumably, I can go and start to query this data. Certainly, I get countries, so that's useful. I can see that information. And I can look back. I can see the data for January of 2008. I've got another set of data for February of 2008. I've got another set of data for March of 2008, and so on. So I have all of my measures. And I do have a region column, but if we drag region out here, look, it's got tons of nulls inside it, so there's certainly a problem with regions. And there's not a date column, so how can I ask for all the data in 2008 or 2009 or the first quarter or all the Januaries across all of my data? I don't have a date dimension. Instead, what I ended up with is separate measures down here that correspond with each of the individual months in my data set. So this clearly isn't quite what I want. I need to fix the regions, and I need to fix that date dimension. I'll show you the next thing that is going to be your friend with this. If you look back at this knowledge base article once again, and you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's a link to an Excel add-in that Tableau provides free of charge. It's a non-supported add-in, but it's there, it's free of charge. It's useful for what we call unpivoting the data. So this is an article that I would encourage you to read and find this download and add it into Excel. Here's the basic set of problems that add-in solves for us. First of all, it will take the notion of this region Africa and apply it to each of the individual countries in Africa. And secondly, it will end up producing a date column for us. So for each of my countries, take Algeria as an example, I'll end up with one row for each of my months. So I'll have a measure, in this case a budget, and I'll have multiple rows that correspond with the combination of month and country. It's a very, very easy tool to use. I'll demonstrate it to you quickly, just reshaping the data. This add-in will produce a new tab inside Excel that we'll do some work with in just a couple of moments. So what's happening right now is Excel is repivoting this data for me and producing a long, narrow set of data. Notice I have several different rows for the country of Algeria, several different rows for the country of Angola, and so on. Each of those rows corresponds to a different date, and the date just happens to give us a name. Year, month. That's my year, month, day column. And this is actually a sales budget column. So this is a long, narrow set of data stored at a very atomic level of detail. This is what Tableau loves. Let's just call this my data spreadsheet for just a moment. Let's save this and go back to Tableau and connect to this data spreadsheet And you'll notice quite a difference in the way in which Tableau works. If we look at this spreadsheet now, I have a column that I can treat as a date dimension, and I also have countries and regions, which gives me the opportunity to create a nice hierarchy. Let's just call this a hierarchy. I'll put regions out here. I'll put sales budget out here. And notice I no longer have to worry about having values for the month of January, the month of February, the month of March. Those values all now exist inside one column, and I can select them individually. So if I want to look at just May of 2008, for example. But that starts to bring into play the next concept that I want to talk about inside Tableau, and how to do Tableau things that look like and feel like and behave like things that we're used to doing inside Excel. Inside Excel, you end up with the same thing quite frequently, where you get columns like this that are a string of numbers that correspond to a date. And you can use some Excel formulas to turn that into a proper date, so you can use Excel's date arithmetic. We can do precisely the same thing inside Tableau, and I'll give you an example of it. In fact, I've started to prepare the formula for myself, and so I'll just copy and paste this. Let's rename this thing for just a moment. This is year, month, day. Let's give that the name of this column. Let's create a new calculation, and I'm just going to paste in that formula that I did a second ago. Proper date. So what is this doing? What I'm doing inside here is just some arithmetic to figure out which year and which month each of these raw pieces of data correspond to. And then I'm using some internal date functions inside Tableau. They're not all that different than the date functions you have inside Excel. And the net result is this produces a proper date value as opposed to a string value. And so in so doing, I immediately have access to all of the date hierarchies that you're used to seeing when you're working with Tableau on top of relational databases. So immediately I have inside Tableau the ability to drill from years into quarters, into months, so on and so forth. All that information is immediately available to me. So the first two concepts that we've talked about, getting the data in the right shape, and one simple example of some formulas, in this case a formula that takes raw text values and converts them into a proper date, and as soon as that happens, Tableau interprets those as dates with hierarchies and drilling and all the beautiful things that traditionally happen inside Excel. Let's take a look at another common thing that happens inside Excel with respect to what we might call cell referencing. So let's take a sample set of data from a data set that represents Kiva loans. These are small loans that are provided to families and subsistence personnel, subsistence farmers in the third world. And perhaps what we're interested in is taking a look at the volume of loans that are let out per year, or perhaps taking this down and looking at this at an individual monthly level of detail. Now, commonly what we want to understand isn't the raw number of loans, the raw value of the loans that were let in December of 2009. Commonly what we're interested in is the percentage change between 2009 December and 2009 November. It looks like they just about doubled in this case from, well, no, I'm sorry, it went up about 20% from 5 million to 6 million. How can we easily calculate that percentage difference? Well, if you look at how that's done in Excel, it's actually not a very easy thing to do. Here's an example of how we might try and accomplish something like that in Excel. We'll get that spreadsheet open here in just a second. Well, it doesn't even want to open, so we'll just carry on and show you how we would do this kind of a formula inside Tableau. The beauty of it is we don't actually have to write a formula. With Excel, you have to do some kind of crazy formula and get it to automatically reset itself each time I get to a new year or a new value for the country dimension or some other way that we want to analyze the data. But it's much more free-flowing inside and much more robust inside Tableau. Just as an example, I'm going to duplicate the measures. So I've got that sum of sales by month or sum of loan funding by month just showing up twice on this. But I'll take the second copy of this variable and just use the menus to say, give me a percent difference. And perhaps we'll ask for this percent difference to be presented as a series of bar charts. We could carry this a little bit further and ask for the bars to be colored with some specialized color palette, maybe the orange, blue, green, diverging color palette. And there you go. That's potentially all we need to do to be able to make this work. We'll do one or two more quick things for some formatting. One of those might be just to produce a dual axis chart on this so I can overlay the raw values with the percent change values. Let's go back to that period in 2009 that we looked at. We went from 5 million to 6.9 million. It was a 35% increase. The beauty of this formula that we created, this cell referencing that looks at the previous value and calculates the percentage difference from the previous value, so February compared to January, as an example. The beauty of that is that that calculation immediately respects additional detail that I might drop onto the report, like loan sector. As soon as I add sector onto the report itself automatically understands how to reset this percentage difference each time I move to a new sector. So as I move from construction to education, for example. Getting that reset to work and adding that additional level of detail to the data inside Excel can be a very, very tricky thing to do, and it's very fragile to do. The beauty of it in Tableau is that it's visual, and then it is robust. It's able to handle changes in the dimensionality without rewriting the formula itself. Another common thing that we want to be able to do inside Excel might be just to take two columns and concatenate them together. So suppose I have something like this loan sector and country. So the loan sector tells me, is this an agricultural loan? Is it an educational loan? Is it a farming loan? Is it for a small business? And then country. Was this done in Algeria? Was it done in Bolivia? Was it done in Peru? Well, if I want to produce something that combines those two together, all you have to do inside Tableau is just say, you know what? Combine these fields. And we get this new entry in the list, which is automatically concatenating those two fields. And in fact, we can even go just a little bit further with it. Right now, it just produces a list that will say something like agriculture, comma, Afghanistan. But we can easily change that so that it's a little bit friendlier for reading. Maybe we just, in this case, I'll use the word in, agriculture in Afghanistan. If I take that and drop it on the label shelf, now I get this nice label. Loans for food in Mexico, loans for agriculture in Azerbaijan, loans for agriculture in Ecuador, clothing in the Ukraine. It's that much easier inside Tableau to be able to produce this calculation that will dynamically combine the distinct values of these two dimensions together. I don't have to worry about producing the formula, then copying it down, and then next week when I get new data with a brand new loan sector, discovering that the formula doesn't completely propagate through the spreadsheet. The beauty of this inside Tableau is that it immediately propagates through the entire spreadsheet, through the entire workbook in this case, across all of the data. Carrying on with this notion of string manipulation, suppose I have some sample data that contains customer names. And for some reason, I just want a subset of this. Maybe I'm only interested in the first name, and maybe it turns out that my data always follows the pattern where there's a series of characters and then a space and then more characters. So that's representative of first name space last name. Well, you know what? To do this in Excel, it's another formula that you got to write. You've got to remember to copy the formula down through the entire spreadsheet. You've got to remember when you get new data next week that the formula has to be propagated forward to the entire spreadsheet. So rather than applying the formula to the spreadsheet itself, we can apply it to this data source, the metadata, and it will apply across all the data in the database that Tableau happens to encounter. Let's go create a new calculated field, and we'll call this first name. Now, as we said in this particular case, the way this data works, there happens to be a series of characters and then a space and then another series of characters. First name, space, last name. So what I want to do is I want to take all of the characters leading up to that space, which means I need to find the space first and then take all the characters left of that. Well, it turns out that there is a function for finding characters. So if you look at this, so I want to find inside the customer name field, I want to find a space. That's really all there is to it. And that tells me the position of the first space in this column that we're playing with. Maybe I'm interested in the final character just now. That probably is overcomplicating it. We'll just stick with that. What I want to do is I want to take all of the things to the left of that space. So what if I say, give me the left of customer name leading up to that position that we found. So in this case, I've got a complex calculation that just represents a buildup of two simple calculations, find and left. I'm stringing those things together just like I would in Excel. The syntax is very similar to what I use inside Excel. And the net result is predictable, just like it would be inside Excel. I have first names. Likewise, I could do last names or anything else. The broader point that I want to make here is that all of those things that you do to manipulate strings and substrings inside Excel, you can do just as easily inside Tableau, and you end up with this more robust experience where the formula gets applied across the entire data set. You don't need to worry about copying the formula from one sheet to the next. It just works, and it works all the time, every time. Let's go through another quick example of something that we commonly do inside Excel. Let's take a look at some data. This is cost of goods broken out by country. And it turns out in this data set we've got two countries, Australia and New Zealand. But there's some data quality issues, right? We've got misspellings, we've got spaces, we've got abbreviations. I want to be able to take all of those things and coalesce them together into one entry for Australia, for example. Well, that's just as simple as grouping those together and maybe giving them a proper alias, A-U-S-T-R-A-L-I-A. And likewise, you'll notice I've got New Zealand with and without a leading space. We could group those together and we could give them another alias as well. The beauty of this now is that I have inside Tableau this way to get around a bit of a data quality problem inside my Excel spreadsheet. I have 2 or 3 different representations of Australia, but I can ask Tableau to coalesce those into one common grouping and give it a label that gets used time and time again. We can make this something that's decomposable, which means that the user can start out looking at this group level, and when necessary, they can drill into the groups and see the details beneath them. But it's not necessary that they do that, right? You don't necessarily have to give them that hierarchical view of the data if you don't want to. Again, a nice, simple, menu-driven way to accomplish something that would otherwise take quite a bit of a calculation inside Excel. For us, it was just click on a couple of elements, group them together, and off we go. Here's another example that comes up frequently. I would like to try and show you this inside Excel if it's at all possible. There we go. So in this particular case, we're back to that the Kiva loan data once again. And I have a bunch of data about a bunch of loans by country, by month, how much money was funded. But what I'm interested in doing is taking that data and blending it with some information I got from the United Nations about each of these countries and how many people live in those countries. So ultimately what I'm interested in this case, is being able to take a country and figure out how much we received in loans, and that in and of itself takes a fairly complicated sum-if formula. Notice I'm trying to aggregate the data. In order to aggregate, I've got to do this complex thing inside Excel with the sum-if. We don't need to do that inside Tableau. But then to complicate matters even worse, I want to go look up this population value from the other tab, from a completely related tab. And inside Excel, I've got to use this complicated index and match functionality, or I've got to use its cousin, which is the VLOOKUP function. Right? We've all seen these functions. This is what happens when somebody tries to make Excel behave like a relational database and do these complex lookups. Let's take a look at exactly the same problem through the eyes of Tableau. So inside Tableau, if I've got these same Kiva loans and I'm interested in looking at them by country, I have something like this funded amount that I might be interested in looking at. But I'm also interested in blending that with some data from the World Bank or the United Nations. I guess it was World Bank data that we have. And in this particular case, the data that I have and that I'm interested in happens to be this population data. So this is the population inside each of these countries. So now I've got two different sets of data that are blended together on one report. Sitting side by side, I've blended them inside Tableau. First of all, notice that in order to get this sum by country, I didn't have to do that crazy sum-if function. Tableau just automatically aggregates the data. And second of all, notice that I didn't have to do anything complicated with a VLOOKUP or an index and a match. Tableau just immediately understands how these data sets relate to one another and blends them together for me. I can take this blending just one step further. Suppose I'm interested in an average funding amount per capita. So that's taking the funded amount divided by the population. Well, I happen to have an example of that pre-built, but I'll show you what it looks like. It's just a simple formula that says, give me the loan amount, give me the loan amount on this top row. That's the loan amount coming straight from the Kiva Loans data set. And then divided by the population that comes out of the World Bank data set. It's that simple. It's just drag and drop columns from these two different sets of data, the Kiva data set and the World Bank data set, and build a formula. And once you're done, you end up with exactly what we're after. In this case, it's loans per capita, which is this column in the center. And it turns out I don't even need to have the original raw values available. If I just want the loans per capita without the loan funded amount and without the population amount, Tableau doesn't matter. It can display just the information that I'm interested in. Might break this up a little bit further by year. This starts to bring in the next concept that I want to talk about, using something inside Tableau that's got a parallel inside Excel. The challenge with this crosstab that you're looking at right now is that the numbers don't stand out, right? None of these numbers happen to stand out any more or less than other numbers because there's no graphical way to look at the data. It's not graphical right now, it's just raw text. So rather than using graphical elements, which is what we would typically prefer, sometimes people in Excel revert back to using Excel's data-driven formatting. I'll show you a couple of examples of how we can do the same type of thing, the same type of data-driven formatting inside Tableau. And one of those might be just as simple as, let's take this loans per capita amount and dragging it and putting it on the color shelf. Now let's try something else for just a moment. Let's turn this into a chart with squares, and let's put this on the color shelf, and let's set this to an orange-blue diverging color palette. We're just going to play around with these colors for just a quick second here. to get what I'm after. Let's see. That's what I'm after. So with just a few clicks, right, I now have this data-driven formatting that helps things stand out, like this extraordinarily high number, 0.42, or some low numbers, like 0.09, right? We get examples on both ends of the spectrum, or 0.0, which happens to be the lowest number that's inside this data set. So it's fairly simple to do this kind of data-driven formatting. It's much less complicated than the way this gets done inside Excel, where you build data-driven formatting rule with Excel formulas that are difficult to understand when you come back and look at this spreadsheet weeks or months later. In this case, the data-driven formatting, the coloring, is all just clearly identifiable right here with this loans per capita sitting on the color shelf. This might be another way to do this. Let's go take a look at another potential example. Let's take this sheet and we'll grab it for just a second. Suppose I want some kind of a threshold to be used on this. So in this case, I've got some kind of a minimum loans per capita, and I'm interested in finding those countries that either have funded amounts above or below this minimum loans per capita. So let's take country, put it out here again. Let's take funded date, put it out here again. We'll put loans per capita one more time out here. But this time, let's build a formula that colors this based upon the value that we've selected in this slider. I'll take loans per capita and create a new calculated field. And this one might be just really simple. If loans per capita is greater than this parameter, this slider, then above, else below, and. Formula could be that simple. We'll just call this my threshold checker. I now have this Boolean column that I can drag and drop onto the color shelf. Let's see how we do. There we go. So when the threshold value is fairly low, I see this difference between the aboves and the belows. A couple of things that we might want to talk about here, one of which is that we can edit these colors. We use a slightly different color palette. And if above has more meaning when it's green, and below has more meaning when it's red, we can explicitly set some colors, and off you go. Another comment that's worth making about this, a comment about performance and about speed. When you're working with these kinds of expressions inside Excel, this is the easy way to be able to do that expression. If loans per capita is greater than this, then use the word above, otherwise use the word below. It turns out that a faster way to do this might just be like this. If I create a simple true-false expression and click apply. So we end up with true, false, and null in this case. And once again, we can go and edit the colors and apply meaning to each of those true, false, and null values. It turns out that Tableau, like any other computing tool, works faster with Booleans and numbers than it does with strings. And so you can use that to your advantage when you're dealing with really, really large volumes of data. The broader point behind this last two tabs that I've shown you is that we can replicate the kinds of data-driven formatting that you might be used to doing today in Excel, but we can do it in a more robust way, in a more dynamic way, and in a way that's easier for the end user to understand just through the simple interpretation of things like this color shelf. So the last concept that I want to talk about as we go through this presentation this morning is this notion of being able to share the results. We can spend all kinds of time putting together an Excel spreadsheet that takes pieces of data from here and there across the organization, jams them into one workbook, slaps a couple of graphics on top of it, but then what? The only thing that you can do to share that with others is either to take static copies and static images of those graphics and put them in an email, but that's just static, it doesn't change. You could send everybody the spreadsheet, but then you never know what any individual is going to do with that spreadsheet. Are they going to change it and then not be looking at the correct numbers? Are they going to share it outside the enterprise inappropriately? Right? Or you could do the right thing and you could publish that spreadsheet to Microsoft SharePoint's Excel services. But who uses Excel services? Nobody that I know of. So the way we can handle that sharing inside Tableau is by simply providing a nice, simple, graphical way for an end user to put together a dashboard. We've all seen these dashboards before. This is just a very simple example of a dashboard that talks about where money is going through the Kiva loan program. And we can certainly talk about all the wonderful things that we do with interactivity on these dashboards, like using a map as a filter that will narrow down the scope of the rest of the elements on the dashboard. Or we could talk about using things like this highlighter as a way to highlight everything on the dashboard that has to do with entertainment, for example, or that has to do with agriculture, so on and so forth. So clearly that's something that's very, very easy to do inside Tableau. The more important point that I want to be able to get across about this is that I can take this analysis now and I can start to share it with others very easily by publishing this off the Tableau server. And it's quite literally just as simple as saying, gosh, I'm going to go publish this workbook off to Tableau server, and we're done. Once it's published inside Tableau server, other end users can access this via their browser, and they'll be able to have an interactive experience with this dashboard. But they don't have to have Excel. They don't have to have a copy of this dashboard. And I, as a publisher, don't have to worry about all the complexities about how to take the Microsoft Excel equivalent of this thing and publish it to SharePoint's Excel services. The point behind Tableau is to make these visualizations easy to produce, robust, and shareable, and interactive. So that was my plan for today, was to walk you through some of the common things that you do in Excel and show you the Tableau equivalent to those capabilities. Thank you again for attending this session, and I look forward to seeing you all personally at TCC in The Hague next week.